We have a wide variety of news to discuss today, including some more news on the waiver wire. We have some injury updates as well. We have another update regarding the Washington Capitals situation and them being fined, which we talked about yesterday. We also have some further updates on the Keefe Yandle Trade Rumours situation, and I want to talk about the Boston Bruins and some other moves they may be making as well, including possibly Yandle. We'll discuss all that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we have a wide variety of things to talk about here today. Let's kick things off with a couple of quick updates on the waiver wire. Yesterday, the Dallas Stars have placed young defenseman Julius Honka on waivers, and he has cleared. So nobody put in a claim for Honka. He can now be assigned either to their taxi squad or to their American Hockey League affiliate. And Brandon Peary of the Chicago Blackhawks has been placed on waivers today. So it's an interesting guy. I mean, he's bounced around a fair bit, kind of gone up and down a lot between the NHL and the minors. He seemed, for the most part, though, to always find a way to score. But he can't seem to keep a job in one team for one extended period of time, which is odd. Essentially, Carl Soderberg being ready to be activated is what caused him to be placed on waivers for the purpose of being assigned. So we'll see. I mean, he's 29 years old. He's been with a number of NHL teams, but like I said, he's a guy that's seems to do well as a depth player, so it wouldn't be shocking to find another team put in a claim, but it also wouldn't be shocking if he cleared. So we will see how that goes. Now, a few updates on some injuries. The Philadelphia Flyers are going to be without a couple of players for an extended time, one maybe longer than the other. Young player Morgan Frost is going to be out for an indefinite period of time with a dislocated shoulder. So obviously that's not good news. He very well could be out for anywhere 4, 6, 8 weeks is difficult to say exactly, but given the condensed schedule, he's likely going to miss a significant number of games. They're also going to be without defenseman Philippe Myers as well, who has a rib issue, and he's classified as week to week, so he's going to miss a minimum of 1 week. So that's a couple of big injuries there for the Flyers, and we also had a big blowout of the Anaheim Ducks organization with defenseman Josh Manson going to be out for an extended period of time as well. He's going to be out for a minimum of 6 weeks with an oblique muscle injury. So that's another big blow on the right side of their blue line. Of course, Manson's a guy that is heavily relied upon there in Anaheim. Veteran player, certainly going to be missed back there. I wonder if we might see the Ducks possibly make a move. It's hard to say. I mean, I know they're giving their young players plenty of opportunity right now, but they certainly have a lot more options when it comes to the younger forwards getting chances. So I don't know if we'll see them maybe look to the waiver wire or another team to pick up another depth player. I mean, they're not going to replace what Manson gives them, but at the same time, that certainly is a blow. And the Ducks are a team that at this point I would suspect are likely not going to be a playoff team. They've had a slow start. Manson himself really hadn't had a great start himself either. So maybe when he comes back, hopefully things can go a little bit smoother next time around. Now, another update on the Washington Capitals situation. Of course, we reported last night that the Capitals as a team have been fined $100,000 for violating COVID protocols while they were on the road. It was later confirmed. We didn't have the full details of the exact scenario that unfolded, but after the video was made, we did get confirmation that 4 Capitals players, they're all Russian players, Ovechkin, Orlov, Samsonov, and Kuznetsov were all gathered in a room. They had no mask on, and that clearly violates the protocols. They had to all stay in their own individual rooms. It's all single occupancy when they're at the hotel. And it was also confirmed that Samsonov had tested positive, which I believe was his test from Tuesday that came back positive, which is certainly high risk for the others. Now, of course, Ovechkin's wife here also been on a bit of a tirade on Instagram earlier and really blasted the NHL protocols, saying that Ovechkin and I believe it was maybe Orlov or Kuznetsov, I'd have to reference the post again, saying that they already showed that they had COVID antibodies, which means that they had the virus before and have already built up defense against it. But still, that really is irrelevant to the situation. At this point, we don't know enough about the virus that even if you're vaccinated or if you've had it, there's no scientific proof right now to say you can't get it again or that you couldn't be a carrier and pass it on, all that. So you still have to be safe. And really, at the end of the day, you have to follow the NHL protocols that the league and the players' union agreed to make this season happen. So, it really doesn't matter, what what they all think about it. That's what the rules are. They're there for a reason. And now those 4 players are all going to have to miss 4 games. Now, in the case of Samsonov, of course, where he tested positive, of course, that assumes that he recovers in the quick amount of time, goes through all his negative tests after to show that he doesn't have it anymore, and move on from there. But still, that's not a good look. I know that Ovechkin put out a statement as well indicating that basically they made a mistake and they need to be better and apologize for it. So we will see if any other teams or anything else comes from this. But it's a very serious situation. I know it might seem weird to some people because they're allowed to be on the ice together. They're sitting next to each other on the bench, but yet they can't hang out in a hotel room. And hotel rooms are tight, areas. They're not overly huge. The ventilation often isn't great. And it's not recommended. And obviously, where one of those players are positive, it's just a bad situation. Another interesting situation, and kind of, I don't want to play too much into this, but I kind of couldn't help but wonder, based on comments, if there could be a little bit of a riff or something, a little tension building up between Leafs star Auston Matthews and head coach Sheldon Keefe. Of course, the Leafs battled the Edmonton Oilers yesterday, which many thought would be a very offensive, highly offensively powered game, and it really wasn't. It was more of a defensive battle. Many said it was kind of, a bit on the boring side. Many figured when these two teams got together with all the firepower on both sides, with lots of goals and be an incredibly entertaining matchup. But of course, Dave Tippett, Oilers coach, really needed to preach more of a defense and a bit of a reset approach for the Oilers. So they played a different kind of game. Now, Matthews, of course, was asked after the game. Of course, the Leafs ended up losing to the Oilers 3-1. About how things went, why maybe things didn't go their way. And one of his comments was that they might have focused too much on the pre-scout and that they can't focus just on 2 players. They have to, more of a team game approach. And obviously, saying that they're focusing too much on the pre-scout kind of is taking a stab at the coach, because ultimately he's the one who puts together the game plan, and that's not good. Now, the next morning, which was earlier today, Matthews didn't go to practice, or I believe he might have been on the ice briefly and left or something like that. And there was reports that he had a one-on-one meeting with Sheldon Keefe. I know Keefe was asked in the presser afterwards, and he just played it off, saying that Auston wasn't feeling the best or whatever, and he'd have an update tomorrow to see if he's ready to go for the next game. But many believe that he left the ice and that they went to have a meeting about it. So I don't know what all transpired, obviously, off the ice, but it's certainly not something you really want to see. If you're a Leaf fan, I know there's been some highs and lows already this season. They've had some really good games where they've played very well and won. They've had some games like this one. I really don't think the Leafs played all that poorly. They had a pretty solid overall game. They just couldn't get the puck to go in, and obviously the Oilers pulled away with a small margin victory, but still victory nonetheless. And you hate to see there being already frustration built up in the ranking system there. So we'll see if things can get smoothed out, or hopefully for their sakes it doesn't delve into being a bigger issue. Now, as I mentioned, I want to talk about Keith Yandle, the Boston Bruins, and I want to talk about another aspect of the Boston Bruins as well. Now, we learned more information again about the Yandle situation from Elliot Friedman in his latest podcast, talking about the fact that obviously we know that last season's exit meetings is kind of what started all of this on Yandle. Some of the other teammates were kind of harping on his lack of defensive play. They appreciated his offense, but wanted to see more effort defensively. A lot of them were getting frustrated that they were a really good-looking team on paper, but not getting the job done. And obviously going into the season, it was kind of led to believe that Yandle was kind of getting the brunt of their failures, really. Ultimately, new management in there, Bill Zito, was kind of putting the pressure on that based on what the players had to say last year and everything, that he was kind of taking the blame, and he was kind of made to feel like he wasn't even a good teammate. And obviously he felt horrible about that, and was really not happy with the whole situation. Clearly, it looks as though what happened next is that the players spoke up, because he was being put in the secondary group that looked like he was either going to be a scratch, assigned to the taxi squad, or trying to put through waivers or whatever. The guys that weren't going to be in the main NHL group either way, and it was many figured he was going to be a healthy scratch and lose his Ironman streak. And apparently some of his teammates went to either management or coaching or both and spoke up and kind of said, this guy needs to be here. He deserves to be on the NHL roster. So they brought him in the next day, which was right before they were supposed to play, practice the power play. Things looked really good. Quenneville put him in the lineup, and of course, as we know, he had a great game, scored a goal. Their second game, he got on the offensive score sheet again, and has been doing rather well. I've only seen bits and pieces of those games, so I can't really comment too much to his defensive play, but I know from an offensive perspective, he's been contributing quite a bit, and I know they've been quite pleased with that side of things. So ultimately, that's kind of the backstory of what happened here, and there's been a lot of talk that because he has a no-move clause, that the main team he would wait for would be the Boston Bruins. But I've seen a lot of reports indicating that the Bruins don't really feel it would be a great fit. But then there's been other reports about a nixed three-way trade, that there was a deal that was discussed and close to being done between the Islanders, Bruins, and Panthers. We don't know all the moving parts, but ultimately Yandle shut that down with his no-move clause as well. But, there's just so many different reports out there. It's hard to say what is the most accurate situation here. But I will say this, given the fact where Yandle's at, his offense has been going well. It sounds to me like the Panthers would like to move the contract, and the fact that he's playing and playing well should keep him in the lineup and keep his streak going. But I would suspect that they probably would still be open to moving him, and obviously the fact he's playing well will only add to his value and increase the possibility. Now, let's take a look at the Boston Bruins and take a look at why I feel it would actually be a good fit, and why I feel it's also not the only potential move that we could see the Boston Bruins make. I mean, the Boston Bruins, as we know, have not had a fantastic start to the NHL season. 5-on-5 especially, things are not going well. Their offense is really dried up. Now, a big part of that, of course, is that their top goal scorer, David Pastrnak, has been out of the lineup, still recovering from an offseason injury, and he is getting closer to returning. I don't know exactly how many more games he's going to miss, but it sounds like he's not too far away, which is good news. They were also concerned about maybe not having Marchand to start the year, but he did make it back. And between Marchand and Bergeron, the little bit of offense they've had have mostly come from those guys, but there's still not a ton of it to look at. I mean, they have several players that would be their secondary scoring outside of Patrice Bergeron and Brad Marchand that have no points on the season. That list includes guys like Jake Debrusk. It includes Craig Smith, who they just signed as a free agent. That includes Ondrej Kase. That includes Charlie Coyle. That includes Jack Studnicka in the few games he's played. David Krejci only has 1 assist. That's just not nearly enough for the supporting cast there amongst the top 6 and top 9 parts for the Boston Bruins. And when you look at their blue line, which is without captain Zdeno Chara and long-time offensive defenseman Torrey Krug, that blue line is not generating anything right now. And obviously I know they want to go younger, give their young guys a chance. And overall, I don't think they're doing a horrible job, but they certainly need to be able to move the puck more and create more offense from their back end. That was one of the things that the Bruins relied on a lot. And I said all along that they're really going to miss Torrey Krug. They really haven't done anything to replace him. The young guys that they have, I just don't see them having the capability to do that. If you look at the entire Boston Bruins blue line, which would include all your players like McAvoy and Carlo and Grzelcyk, Clifton and Zboril, Miller and Lauzon, they have nothing. No Bruins defensemen have any points, which is terrible at this point. I know it's only 3 games, but it's a shortened season. They're only playing 56. They're in a situation where if they make a trade and somebody has to go into quarantine, they might lose a week or more of action. Like, they don't have a lot of time to waste to get things going, or they're going to be at risk of losing their streak here, being a good solid playoff team and being a cup contender. I mean, they've had good goaltending. I must say Rask and Halak have been playing well, and I know their offense will get a boost with having Pastrnak back in place. But we know that some of their other forwards, like I said, like especially Jake Debrusk is a guy that's had a lot of trade rumors surrounding him. Inconsistencies, what he's battled through here. He's been overall, if you look at the grand scheme of things, his seasons have been relatively productive. But still, he's not doing it on a nightly basis. They still don't have consistency from Ondrej Kase, who they acquired last year. Obviously he's battled some injuries too, and I know that's probably part of it. Jack Studnicka, you can't put too much pressure on him. He's young, still getting his first few games under his belt, so not a lot of pressure there. But even Krejci, for the most part, is still a reliable playmaker, but not really getting much done right now. And a lot of that could be said for who he's playing with as well. You get Charlie Coyle. Like, they all need to be better, and there's some missing pieces there. So I can't help but wonder if we're going to see Don Sweeney finally do something to shake things up with the Boston Bruins. They had a very, very quiet offseason. Besides Craig Smith coming in as like a secondary depth piece in the secondary scoring up front, they really didn't do much of anything. And if you look at what they lost compared to what they added, like, they're just not, I can say that the forwards just are not getting enough opportunities there. Now, I understand that the young defensemen have a lot of confidence in guys like McAvoy to be the top D-man and really lead things back there. Carlo's an excellent stay-at-home more type defenseman. I know Grzelcyk is, pretty good at moving the puck back there, but, just something has got to give here. Adding a guy like Keith Yandle, even though his contract might not be the most desirable, they might want to give those young guys a chance. They can't wait too long before they say this isn't working, and adding a guy like Yandle would be a prime opportunity to replace the offense that they got for Torrey Krug. Now, yes, Yandle's a little bit older than Krug, and yes, the contract might not be the most desirable, but maybe Florida can retain, even if it's only 20, 25%, every little bit helps. Maybe they take a contract back as well to kind of offset things. Like, things could work out in a trade to really get some more offense back there. I mean, Yandle, in my opinion, is still a very productive player. You have a more of a blue line there with some guys who can cover defensively. If he played with a guy like Carlo, for example, that very well could be a good match. Like, that's just my take on that. Like, I think they need a guy like Yandle, and I wouldn't be shocked as well, on top of that, if they went out and considered moving a guy like Debrusk if there's another forward that can come back and give them more consistent jolt of offense in that top six. He's just, something has to change here. Adding Pastrnak in will help, but it's not going to solve everything. They've only got one more year of David Krejci being this year. After that, he's a free agent. Will they want to re-sign him? There was rumors that they did, but it would obviously be at a cheaper rate because he's making like $7 million right now. So that's not going to fly on his next contract. That's too much money. But do they continue with that? Do they maybe try to find somebody else to kind of play more of a prominent top six role and bump him down? I don't know, but they need to do something, and those are the chips that they have right now to kind of in play here. Now, I'm not sure if Debrusk could be flipped for Yandle. I don't think I'd really like that kind of deal. If I'm going to pick up Keith Yandle from Florida, I'm going to think that I'm kind of doing him a favor taking that contract. So maybe one of their younger defensemen could be used like a Lauzon or a Zaboral perhaps. But, we know Florida has lots of defensemen as well. They've picked up a lot on waivers. Recently they've got Juleson and Forsling and Connaughton that they've signed. Like, they really don't need a defenseman back. So, difficult to say what it could be. Maybe it's just a pick. I don't know what Florida gets. But, at the end of the day here, the Bruins could use Keith Yandle to drive the offense from the back end, help the power play out, and they could look to inject some offense in the front end as well, while they still have these really solid core pieces together like Bergeron and Marchand and Tuukka Rask back there, David Krejci, and see what they can do, if they can make another run at this or what, because it's not going to be long before you're going to start to see a bit more of a decline in guys like Bergeron and Marchand. They're still going to be productive players right into their later years, though. They've aged well, so they're not in any major danger, but they need to have like the next wave to come along and start playing a bigger role, and they can start being more of the secondary in the next year or two here, or the team eventually is going to start to, work their way down the standings and bottom out, and they might have to go in a whole different direction here. So let me know your thoughts. Do you see Yandle being a good fit in Boston? Let me know your thoughts on all the other items that we discussed here. Lots of news today and other moves that the Bruins could make to make themselves more competitive for this shortened season. Let me know your thoughts down below and we'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.